Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host, Nathan B. Butler. This episode, we finish our look at the prequel trilogy on VCD coming from Indonesia. But don't worry, we have one more Indonesian VCD to look at next time that will probably be a surprise to many. Now, in the last couple of episodes, we've looked at the different Indonesian releases of the other two prequel films. We're focusing on Revenge of the Sith this time. But for Phantom Menace, it was this, and it had that crappy little cardboard, not even really cardboard, cardstock, fold-around cover that just held a couple of jewel cases, which kind of sucked. It was basically similar to what we saw out of Malaysia. In the previous episode, the one right before this one, 486, we took a look at Attack of the Clones, similar packaging, which again sucks, but it did have the saving grace of having a third disc that included the connections and deleted scenes that we would see as bonus features in the US on the VHS release of Attack of the Clones. So the question is, what about Revenge of the Sith? Because we've seen Revenge of the Sith, for instance, in Hong Kong, take a similar format to what we saw with Attack of the Clones over there, although those both deviated heavily from what we saw with the Phantom Menace. On the other hand, if we take a look at what we saw as I shift a bunch of stuff around out of Turkey, in Turkey, Phantom Menace was a simple jewel case, as was Attack of the Clones, as was Revenge of the Sith. So they had a consistent form of packaging here. On the other hand, if we take a look at, say, Singapore, they had this cool version that's basically a jewel case, except instead of sitting this way or this way, it is meant to be opened vertically. Try not to let the disc fall out. Open vertically, like so, which is a pretty neat, different way to do it. And then if we look at Malaysia, where I started looking at any VCD stuff, we have something that looks very much like the DVD release, but instead of a DVD, inside the jewel case are the two VCDs for the film. So we're talking about a situation, as I almost drop it, where basically there were significant changes over time to the VCDs, often because the distributor that was working with 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment in a particular region may have changed. In Turkey, it was always Tiglon, so they're all consistent. In Hong Kong, it was Deltamac the entire time, but inconsistent. In Malaysia, we haven't seen Attack of the Clones, but it was Video Van and Movie Magic. So what about Indonesia? They also saw a change. Rather than it being Musica Video Van again, instead it was a company called Magic Eyes International putting out the Indonesian release, somewhat similar to the Malaysian approach with a DVD style case here of Revenge of the Sith on VCD. So we have up here in the corner is Video CD, little logo says Indonesian subtitling, not subtitles, subtitling, right? The verb or way of, what do you call it, predicate noun when you turn something that's a verb into a noun, whatever. What we've got here is, just like the previous two we looked at, it is all English audio and an English open and crawl, but then the subtitles are all there along the bottom in Indonesian. And so similar to a lot of the VCDs we've seen with subtitling and all. Again, you've got English text about the film on the back. You've got Indonesian, then you got your cast crew information, your various logos and whatnot there, since we're on the topic of language here. I will say there is a difference on the cover, though, when it comes to language, because notice you've got your thing about the subtitles. You got your price, Magic Eyes International, 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, who they're partnered with. Then the title there, the logo, right, the 3 with Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith. But there is no Indonesian title on the front of the packaging this time. It is just presented as the English title. Now you notice here that the cover is much more like the VHS releases in regions that got those rather than the DVDs, because DVDs had, the artwork much bigger and sort of rearranged differently. This does actually fit right along similarly, but not exactly, with the Thai DVD release that we've seen before of Revenge of the Sith, right? So there are other formats beyond just VCD that in some regions took that sort of VHS look to the packaging. A little bit more busy over here, but it's not to say that, VCD was the only one that had that because it was sort of that VHS generation of stuff or anything. Some DVDs in regions had it too, just not the mainstream regions that we've seen mostly on the show. Okay, so there's your packaging there. Your spine, 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, 3. Then we have product number, video CD, and Lucasfilm, very similar to, in many ways, what we'd see with like the DVD spines and whatnot. In this case, it is a slip cover, but it's a slip cover that goes on from the top, unlike what we saw, say, with the VCD out of Malaysia for this, but similar to what we see with the DVD out of Thailand. Boy, a lot of comparisons going on here. So we have essentially the same packaging without the price tag here in terms of design, right? Even laid out the same here, but just much more reflective because it's in that, you know, regular case here. Inside, I got the little slip from it still here. You have your discs, but since it is a clear case, you do have artwork underneath it. So we have the logo over here with Mustafar, the duel there, that same art we've seen millions of times there with Mustafar. But notice, still no actual use of an Indonesian title for the film or anything. And then the discs, we'll look at disc 1 first. We have the logo, again, English only. Vader there says disc 1, Magic Eyes International, Lucasfilm Limited, 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, video CD. Then little logos here, digital encoding process, Indonesian subtitles, warning about copyright stuff and whatnot, legalese, all that kind of stuff you'd expect there at the bottom. And then similarly, again with Yoda, as we often see with these, we have disc 2. It's a little bit shiny. You can barely tell. There's a little bit of a shine to them. Nothing like the shine that we saw on some versions of like the Phantom Menace on VCD, depending on the region. But there's a little bit of a shine to the logos this time, or to the labels this time, which is kind of neat. And again, basically where this cuts is that Mace has just taken off to go confront Palpatine. It shifts over to see Padme sitting there thinking as the music is starting to change, but then it cuts. And that scene of the music and sort of the brooding of Anakin and Padme going back and forth is where the second disc picks up. But I would note there are no bonus features or anything like that, like we saw with Attack of the Clones, probably because on VHS, which is sort of the generation of material that this would be an analog to, there just weren't any bonus features on those releases in other regions either on VHS. You really needed DVD to get any of the actual bonus features at all. So yes, kind of an interesting scenario here where, again, we see another region getting VCDs, which is pretty common from regions in Asia, particularly South and East Asia. But yet another different approach to Revenge of the Sith. In one of these regions where VCD was kind of a mainstay home video format for a fairly long time compared to many others, as we will see in our next episode. So we finished out the oddball prequel trilogy here, matching Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, non-matching Revenge of the Sith, all from Indonesia, all full screen, all with Indonesian subtitles, English crawl, and English audio. What on earth can we be looking at next? I will tell you this, it's not the original trilogy, which raises some eyebrows, I would think. We will find out next time as we jump into another VCD from Indonesia that will blow some minds, possibly. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.